Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the latest edition of Tales from Outer Space, where I take stories from across the internet and read them for your entertainment. This particular story is called Just One Human, written by TRMerc. Quincas poked his head into his boss's office. "You wanted to see me, ma'am?" The hexapod alien slowly walks into the room, his two sets of hands nervously fidgeted, as he wasn't sure why he was called in. His feet shuffled some as he tried to stay close to the door for a quick exit. Losars looked up. Quincas, thank you for being on time. I wanted to talk to you about some of the mission reports you've given me by the Explorer branch. Please, have a seat. Putting up multiple reports on a holomonitor, and while his reading backward skills were not the best, he recognized they all involved a specific employee of the branch. "Oh," Quincas said as he made his way over to the padded spot on the floor designed for a species with more than two legs. Laying down, so he was facing not only Losars, but the other two chairs for bipedal races as well. The statement "oh" got an annoyed look in response from Losars, as if he should already know what the problem was. "Yes, and I have to say that your lying has been rather uncreative," Losar started, and Quincas blurted out and stuttered, "Liars? I haven't lied or falsified any of my reports." This wasn't completely true. He did leave out some of the more embarrassing events that didn't need to be reported. Losars snapped her head to look up at Quincas. "Yes, you have. You said only one human in the entire galaxy has been found, and yet your reports seem to indicate that we have well over a dozen, and that most of them have died." A sharp hand movement pulled up a list of all the events from the 10 reports Losars had where normally those involved would have died. Quincas blinked a little in confusion, not the reaction Losars had expected. Quincas sat there a moment in silence as he processed what he just said. Then it dawned on him, and he started to relax some. "Well, that's because there is only one human, and we didn't die in any of those situations." His posture became a little more confident, just a little. "Are you lying to my face right now? Orbital crash landing that destroyed 20% of the ship, exposure to 100 rads, an injury that resulted in half a liter of blood loss. You expect me to believe this human survived all of this?" Pointing to each report that she was referencing with a long 5-jointed finger. Quincas shrugged. "Well, yes, because that is what happened." Quincas started to press a few buttons on a communication band on his lower wrist as he sent a message to the human on his crew to get to the office as quickly as possible. It would probably be better to have him there to explain what happened. "I will summon him as quickly as possible." Losars nodded slowly and leaned back in her chair. "I'm not sure what he's going to be able to say that you couldn't, unless it is a story that you've both been working on." The pair waited for the human to arrive. Dave walked through the door and said, "You, wanted to see me?" The figure that entered was fit for a human. He had to be with what his mission was. To be the first human to attempt FTL travel after several FTL probes were sent out and telemetry was received over 2 decades. Losars pointed to a chair. "Please sit. I just want to review some of the reports you were mentioned in." Dave looked over to Quincas, who rubbed the back of his head with his hand. Sitting, Losars started. "I just wanted to say that it was very lucky that you happened to appear close to one of our ships. We found a few probes by your people that ran out of power despite having a radiological power source." Dave nodded. "I figured it might be a one-way trip, but navigation back has been the hardest part, as the stars aren't in the positions we thought they were, and, you haven't really explored much in the direction of Earth is." Losars nodded. "Yes, but your technology seems to have a greater reach than we first expected. 20 cycles and still nothing." The human ship had apparently traveled more than 10 times what their most powerful scout ship could in a single jump. The technology of the human engine had been baffling, to say the least. Their scientists can't believe it even powered up, let alone traveled such a great distance. Dave nodded again with a hint of disappointment. "Yeah, didn't think I'd miss the Earth, but can't change that now." And Dave smiled up, as if being homesick wasn't a problem at all. Losars smiled some, as the reports made him out to be some kind of unkillable monster. "I'm just a little confused. Are you the only human who came all this way? These reports that I've received are all of a mission that you were on, and I must say, they seem more plausible if they were others." Dave shrugged. Not sure. I was the first manned ship. There could have been others after me. Well, the loss of a single human might delay the next test. It won't stop progress. The thought of a race of individuals willing to throw their lives away for the sake of progress was admirable, if worrying at the same time. Bringing up one of the reports. Then can you please explain how you survived the crash on Yetzer 5? Dave laughed. Oh, that, yeah. The ship lost power during a routine pass, and I barely got maneuvering thrusters back online before landing. If I hadn't, I probably would have crashed nose first into that cliff. I had 2 broken ribs and a broken fibula. Dave made a hand motion of a ship flying with one hand and the other acting as the side of a cliff, as if verbal explanation wasn't enough. Lascelles reviewed the report again. I don't understand. I don't see any expenditures for cybernetic replacements, and even started a real-time scan of Dave to see if the bones were still broken. Dave thought for a moment and then smiled. Oh, right, no, they healed. None of the species in the convergence made casts before. We used an organic resin that held the bones together so they could heal. To be honest, better than anything we've had back home. Kvik laughed again. I put that in my report, that the bones were healed, didn't I? And Lascelles looked back in shock. That E-species bones just decided to put themselves back together wasn't even on the list of possible explanations for how they were healed. I thought that it was some new technology our medical division had developed, and have been asking for 9 cycles about the reports. Are you saying all human bodies are able to put themselves back together? To her, it was the closest thing to a species with a regeneration superpower. Dave looked for the words, not exactly. He wasn't sure how to explain it. It is just something our bodies do. The bones regrow and connect back to each other. If not said properly, it can cause problems. But your medical team put every tiny piece back to where it belonged. I think that is why there is barely any long-term damage. Kvik turned to his boss. It is one of the reasons humans are so resilient, in my estimation, and why we should seek out their homeworld for recruitment. The smile on his face was one of pride, as if his revelation of humans as a scouting force would make casualties nearly zero. Lascelles blinked a few times. What about this? You were aboard the Severius when it suffered a containment breach in the radiological generator. While others ran out, you ran in and contained the breach by holding a piece of shielding that was going to be used to service the reactor until the team in full environmental protection gear was able to arrive and seal the breach. You were exposed to 100 rads of radiation and survived. Their boss laughed like it was a fantastical story, and Dave looked confused. It did happen. There are videos, and I even have one saved on my personal datapad. Humans can actually survive 9 times that amount. I was sick for a couple days, and after getting some potassium iodine, I felt much better. The medical division is currently looking into it, but fears that many species will die from exposure to potassium iodine, which would be more fatal than the radiation. Starting to look more scared now, Lascelles turned to the next report. I see. While radiation might affect you less, surely blood loss should be fatal. This next report is of an altercation that has... She scrolled through the report to find the line, resulted in eating utensil becoming lodged in your abdomen. Dave nods. Oh, it is. Anything over 2 liters will kill a human without transfusion. If Lascelles had been holding anything, she would have dropped it. Transformation? And Dave shook his head. No, transfusion. A donation of blood from another human. They have to be of the right blood type and all, but we put it under the same category as organ transplants. There was a moment of silence as Lascelles was in such shock she forgot to speak the words out loud before realizing it. Humans take organs from someone and put them inside another person? The idea made the human body sound more like a machine. Dave nodded. Yes. Mostly from those who recently passed away, though some organs that we can't survive with one less of, or half of, are taken from living humans. The smile was meant to be reassuring, but Lascelles felt that it was anything but. Were humans able to do this with other species? If so, humans might consider every race in the universe spare parts. Kvik looked between the two and didn't want his boss to die from fright. But humans only do so willingly, even if it is the wishes of the individual who passed. Dave nodded. Oh yes, we wouldn't force well. I mean, there are criminals who'll do it illegally, but they are punished for it, in addition to murder. Lascelles squeaked out, by harvesting organs? Dave gasped in horror. The first sign the conversation was disturbed him. What? Oh, no. That is a monstrous thing to do. We put them in prison. The first civilized thing Lasars thought humans did was hesitantly before returning to reports. Or execute them if it's severe enough. Well, so much for civilized. There was an altercation with 7 Malaservians, but it says that you stopped them after they engaged 20 members of the crew who retreated, leaving you by yourself. While her voice wasn't as squeaky as just a moment ago, there was still a twinge to it. Dave smiles proudly. I did. I never liked bullies, even on Earth, sir. Do you not know Earth has 3 times standard gravity? Lasars shook her head as her people came from a world with 3/4 standard gravity, like most bipedal species. While Quivic was from a world with 1 1/4. Melisarvan's homeworld was the highest recorded to have sentient species, at 2. Lasar's hearts were pounding fast from fear and excitement that not only was this human as much of a monster as reports were making him out to be, but he was friendly at that. Phasal 9 temperature, 244 or minus 20 Fahrenheit, and Walter Vac, 2 temperatures, 305 or 90 degrees Fahrenheit. Dave laughed. Midwest boy, those extremes are an average annual event where I'm from. Not even the lowest and high. The inaudible gulp was heard. It says here that you landed on Pulsar 4 before it underwent a strange gravitational phenomenon where its gravity shifted from half standard to 10 times standard. Dave nodded once more. Yeah, 10 Gs. 30 times standard gravity is what humans can resist. But not for long. Maybe a minute. Lasars wasn't even bothering to read the summary of the reports at this point, and just reading what was supposed to be impossible. He who were lost for a standard month with only 2 standard weeks of food and water. Yeah, that was tough. And I lost a lot of weight, but humans can go 3 Earth weeks without food. About 2 standard weeks, but it takes a toll on the body. I was able to make those supplies last, so I only ran out with half of the standard weeks left. The way he said it was as if it wasn't a life-ending experience every other species found it to be. Pulling up the last report, Lasars had finally reached a limit and closed it. I think we are good here, she deciding to end the meeting there. Dave, who had been enjoying his time and had looked at Quivic and Lasars' faces to see the shock side. Sorry, I didn't mean to scare you. Quivic saw half of those things in person, but I guess it never really hit him all at once. So I guess you want to hear about the human endurance then? Lasars looked confused. Endurance? And Dave's nodded. Yes. What we consider our best trait and what allowed us to not only survive, but thrive on our home world. We couldn't outrun things we hunted, but we could wear them down by chasing them for days. Lasars looked intrigued. Days, you say? Quivic slowly turned to look at Dave and quietly whispered to the human, Don't. End of story. I would just quickly like to thank the T5 peeps. Dragon Soup, Cold War Boomerwaffen, Severin Cerberus, Red Panda 121, Leslie 517, Bushmaster 177, Caspar Arnholtz, Cam Maxwell, Sans the Skeleton, Lightjock, Dragzoon WRE, and Lord Azrakal. Thank you very much.